understanding your self-story and its impact on your wellness. I'm excited for this one. I like this one. And this takes you right into journal prompt 5, which is exploring your self-story. So what in the world is a self-story? It's a story that you tell not only yourself, but the world about who you are. It's that simple. And you might think, why are we looking at our self-story? But we're looking at it because the story that you tell yourself about yourself is seldom who you really are, especially before you are healed, right? The story that you tell the world is seldom the truth of who you are. Normally, our stories either revolve around our idealized self, or they are around all the bad things that have happened to us. So I can tell a lot by where someone is, by what they include in their self-story. So for instance, I had a client who was like one of the most toxic people I've ever encountered. And now I can see it so much clearer. But when you talk to her about her story, and I didn't call it her story, I was just asking her about herself, and everything was about her mother. Like, this woman was 65 years old and everything was about her mother. Her mother was in the center of her story. Her mother was to blame for everything that went wrong. Her mother was to take credit for everything that went right. Her mother, her mother, her mother, her mother. She had no awareness of who she was in her own story. She was not even a part of it. Her mother was. She centered her mother in part because it allowed her to ignore all the really toxic and nasty things that she was doing. So my story is all about my mom. I'm going to distract the world and myself from looking at myself. I'm making my story all about her. I have seen people, when they share their story, they will center their trauma. They will center the worst things that have happened to them. They will center their worst mistakes. Okay. I noticed in myself, when I would talk to people about who I was, it was always really superficial, right? Before I was healed, it was always like, I'm a mom, I was in the military, I've been married this number of times. Like, it was like this resume. It wasn't anything like deep about who I was. But what caught my attention was that I would tell people that I brewed wine and beer, and that I woodworked, and that I did some metal work and da-da-da-da. Well, sure, I did those things at one time, but I hadn't done those things in years. And I was still claiming it as central to my self-story. Why? Because I was living this very idealized view of who I was instead of living this authentic view of who I was, right? Because I didn't know myself. I didn't. So I took this list of accomplishments or this list of values that I thought, would appeal to somebody, and that became my self-story. That was all me still performing. A lot of my clients think that they are one way, and they'll talk about themselves as though they're one way. And then I have to point out to them, well, that's not true. Look at this as examples of that not being true. Why do you think that's true? Because you are stuck with an idealized view of who you are, as opposed to seeing the truth of who you are. Maybe because it's too uncomfortable, maybe because you cannot see it, for myriad reasons. But what I have found is that the self-story can be a very easy way to see what we prioritize in our life and how deeply we actually know ourselves. And the self-story is much more important to self than it is to others. I only bring up that to make a point, right? I don't really care how you present to others. That's your choice. But you need to know the truth of who you are. You need to make sure that in your story, you are the main character, and that you actually know who that person is, what that person likes, what drives that person, what makes that person angry, all of it. You need to know yourself really well. So this is just one way to look at yourself a little bit deeper. What is your self-story? I want you to do this exercise with integrity, and I don't want you, now that you have this understanding, to lie about what your self-story is. I want you to actually just lay it out. What is the story? If I was a stranger and we were meeting, how would you introduce yourself to me? If we sat down for a session the first time and I said, okay, who are you? What's up? What kind of things are you leading with? With a lot of wounded healers, I will hear stories of, I do so much for everyone else, but there's nobody there for me. the world doesn't treat me right, doesn't know me, doesn't love me. It's all bullshit. It really is, because the same people who take on those views are some of the more toxic people who are doing harm in all their relationships but can't see it because they have centered their victimhood in their self-story. And so they can't see how they're perpetuating harm onto anyone else. They are the victims. So your self-story can be quite enlightening. And I want you to share your self-story free of any judgment, you guys. Okay? Some of y'all don't like to have honest conversations with yourself because you know how harshly you're going to judge yourself. We can't do that. Free of judgment. Okay? I just want to know, what is my story, so that I can see what I center, so that I can take back my power and I can reframe it in a way that's actually truthful and authentic for me. Okay? Your self-story isn't just about what you tell yourself. It's also about how you see yourself in the world. And if you have a self-story that leans more towards you being a victim, you're seeing yourself as a victim out in the world. If you have a story that sees you more courageous, more living in your truth, more authentic, you're showing up those ways out in the world. Your self-story really does inform how you show up. And that's why it's important to have a good handle on it and to understand what it is. Understanding the law of alignment. This one's going to take you right into exercise 6, visualizing your most powerful and free self. And we're also going to discuss the power of creating an alter ego. Okay, so the law of alignment is, I'm the first one that I heard coin that, but I'm sure it's existed out there before, but I don't hear many people talking about it. And I think it's important. The law of attraction was popularized, I think, in like the 90s, right? And it's all about kind of aligning yourself, but in really kind of passive ways with what you seek to create. So I'm going to do a vision board. I'm going to affirm things, and that might not seem passive, but I'm gonna explain to you why, right? But more than not, how people understand it is, I'm going to create a vision board. I'm going to put things up that I seek to manifest in front of me, and that in doing that, I'm just subconsciously going to pull these things into my reality. I've also heard about the law of assumption, which posits that if I assume that I'm going to get something, that is, I believe that I'm going to get something, then I'm going to get it. And I believe that belief is a powerful manifestation tool, manifestory tool, as I like to call them. I like to make up my own words, so if you hear any of that. But one that cuts right through all the BS is the law of alignment. You will get whatever you are aligned with. If I am driving a car and I'm in this lane, I'm going to get whatever's in that lane. If there are potholes, if there are obstacles, if it is smooth driving, if there's traffic, I'm going to get what's in that lane. If I don't want to be aligned with what's in that lane, I move my wheel. I make an active choice whenever it's available, and I get in the lane that will yield the best results for me. Law of alignment. I have a million ways we could say this, right? If I want love in my life, but I keep choosing hate in my actions, in my thoughts, I'm not aligned with the energy of love. It's going to be so much harder for me to receive it. Okay. So let's say I'm going down water slides and I want to be on the love water slide, but I get onto the hate slide. But I assume I'm going to end up in the love one, right? But I'm not choosing it. I'm not going to end up in the love pool. It's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. Alignment works, and I want to show you how it can work in the negative. Let's say you want to be a good parent, and that is where you're focused. I'm aligned with that energy. That's what I am looking at. My steering wheel is turned in that direction. All right, I'm going that way. I want to be a good parent. But over here, I can remember how my father was a terrible father and I don't want to be him. I take my eyes off of being a good parent and I'm focusing on how my father failed and how much I don't want to do that. I've taken my eyes off the road. My eyes are here. The wheel will naturally move in that way, and so will my wheels. And where will I end up? Being a bad parent, because that's the energy that I chose to align myself with. Do you understand? It's not about what you want. It's not about what you expect. It's not even about what the hell you deserve. It's about where you align your energy. All right. And I want you to think about this from many different places, right? If I want to be successful, I cannot surround myself with people who are bums, right? I'm in that energy. I am naturally aligning to it. The more I consume and am around that energy, the more I will naturally align with it, right? If I want peace, but I'm always in the middle of drama and gossip and da-da-da-da-da, where am I going to find that peace? It doesn't matter how much I want it. It doesn't matter how much I think I deserve it. It doesn't even matter how much I think I'm choosing it. Unless I actively am, when I can, I'm going to end up with what I am aligned with, right? That takes us right into our talk of an alter ego. A lot of you have egos that are so wounded that it may be too difficult to reform and to heal that ego. It might be best to just take on an alter ego that helps you embody the traits that you want to. So I'm going to tell you a story about me. Don't judge me. I don't judge y'all. All right. So there was a time when I was a cam girl. I needed to make money, and I was disabled, and that was the easiest way I knew to make money. Right. And here I am on the screen trying to entice men to buy more time with me. And that's not my personality. I am not a sexy, sensual person on purpose. At best, I do it accidentally, at best, right? And so I struggled, but I could create an alter ego. And Lola could do those things. Lola could be sexy. Lola could be, provocative. Lola had the power to seduce these men, to pull them into more time. That's when I realized sometimes to get in alignment with the energy that you want, you simply have to step into it. Instead of trying to convince your ego to change its ways, you are safe, you can believe that you're safe. Let me just embody the energy that I need to embody to get to where I want to be. Okay. So when you do this exercise today, I really want you to think about your most powerful self. And most importantly, I want you to look at how your most powerful self shows up and how you show up and where are the gaps. Because where there are gaps, there are places to take decided action. So maybe you visualize your most powerful self and she wears her hair down all the time and her posture is really good and her chest is up and open and she walks with confidence. Well, that's an easy thing for you to do today. That's easy. That doesn't require dealing with a whole lot of trauma and reframing things in this really aggravating, intense way of getting through things. It's a decision, right? Maybe your alter ego eats better. She eats healthier, right? So that you can start eating healthier. You just start embodying that. For a time when I really needed to help myself through something, I would say, would Lola do this? Would Lola lay in bed at this time? Or would Lola be up and working? Would Lola allow herself to rest right now? Or would Lola demand, even though she feels like crap, to keep going? Would Lola let someone talk to her like that? Or would Lola call that out? Right? It really did help me to align my energy to something much more powerful by simply looking through this healed whole ego instead of allowing my ego that was broken and wounded to take so much control. Because where you are not healed, it will take the wheel. It will. Right? And a lot of us are running around as the 4-year-old versions of ourselves in grown meat suits and we think we're mature, but our emotional maturity ended at the time when our free emotions were the most suppressed and damaged. So instead of focusing strictly on that, while we seek to heal that, we also seek to just step into the power that we want as easily as we choose to make it. So what I don't want you guys to do, and what I don't encourage you to do, is to make major life decisions right now while you're in active healing, even if Lola would do it. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why. Because until you are really healthy, you're not in the best position to make healthy choices for yourself. You're not. right? So I want you to do this with the smaller things, but not necessarily with the huge things. Not yet. Not yet. I want you to clear more of this trauma so that you know that you're even perceiving your most powerful self as powerful as you could. Because the version of you who's seeing this most powerful self now and the version of the healed you who will see your most powerful self are different. And how that powerful self shows up might be different too, right? So this is good for like aligning your energy, not good for making big life decisions. All right, you guys, but play with it. Start dressing as your most powerful self. Start talking as your more powerful self. Start embodying that energy. And without even trying, you will become aligned with that energy. And more of the blessings that will show up for your most powerful self, you'll just slam right into them. You'll just walk right into them without much effort. All right? The law of alignment, it will be more powerful than anything else that you choose. Where you are aligned, that is what you will find.